your thoughts on NASCAR today?
I think NASCAR is in a transition, but in a good place. I think that they have finally decided that if you can't bring the fans, if the fans won't come to the sport, take the sport to the fans. And I think the LA Coliseum and the Chicago street race are two perfect examples of that. We went to Joliet and couldn't get the crowd from Chicago to come out. So
50 miles away.
Yeah. So we went to the streets. Same thing with LA. You couldn't get them to come to Southern California so much. So we went to them. So I think they're good. I think this car, if they continue to do what they're doing with this car, continue to be open to suggestions to tweak it, whether it be stiffness, whether it be aero, whatever. If they continue to stay open, I think they're headed in the right direction. I think there's still some weak spots in it. I don't think their short track program, they don't put on great short track races. That's not a good thing for this car. The speedway stuff is always going to be whatever it is, as long as we run those the engines and try to restrict them. That's always going to be what it is. But the intermediate tracks and some of it is in pretty good place. And I think the leadership is open to change, and that's a good place to be. I think Jim France has taken it more of a role, but him and Steve Phelps and Mike Helton and O'Donnell and all those guys are doing a good job.
Yeah, I like seeing Jim around. He's a pretty cool character. Wears those jeans and just fits right in. So the second one is, elaborate a little bit more on that, if you don't mind. The next gen car.
Yeah, see, the next gen car is such a departure from anything that you and I ever messed with.
Independent suspension.
We had
one lug nut.
We were still running trailing arms and track bars and stuff, just like out from under an old Chevy pickup. And the front suspension, front suspension out of a 68 Chevelle with the rear steer and all, our front steer and all this. So when you start looking at it, we were running antiquated technology. When they came in, think about it. You couldn't even go to an auto parts store hardly and buy a carburetor off the shelf, but NASCAR was still running carbureted engines. That's because nobody everybody had abandoned that technology. So I think what they did, they basically jumped with this car. If you really look at it, from the car that we were running before, and when I say the car we were running from, it's been a slow transition through the early 2000s into where we are now. But it's basically a transition of about 15 or 20 years. It's
they really went like boom.
They just went the other, sequential shift, independent suspension, rack and pinion. I mean, they just did everything all at once and threw it in there. And then 6 races into the season, people wanted to complain about the car. And it's like, whoa. They put 30 years of technology into a car and just said, go race it. Now there's going to be some weak spots. We're going to have some things that fail. We're going to have some things that work. We're going to have to change some things. And that's why I say, I think if they continue to be that and continue to look at stuff like that, then the car will get better. But the car is a good jumping off spot to be in 2023, 24.
Yeah. And the final question, your opinion on the incredibly hardcore penalties. Now they seem to have calmed down, but your whole opinion on the $400,000 penalties to Rick Hendrick, and have the teams got the message now?
See, there's the question. I think because I think as a racer, you never get the message. Because that's not what you're paid to do. True. You're paid, and racing, unlike any other sport, nobody takes the NFL rule book or Major League Baseball rule book or golf and they say, maybe I could do this.
How can I get these guys?
How can I get in between these rules? But everyone would take the NASCAR rule book and say, how can I get in between these two rules? And that's just what you did. And that's what you did from 1949, the first time they ever run a cup race, until Rick was fined recently. You know what I mean? That's just what you do. And we're going to continue to see that, whether it's with hood louvers or whether it's underbody, no matter, you're going to see somebody trying something because that's the nature of the sport. I think in a sport where, and I will say this again, I think this, and I've said it before, a sport where $20 or $30 million is spent on a car, I'll pay a $400,000 fine all day long. until you start taking the win and the points and everything else away and make it like I wasn't even there,
Yeah.
then it's going to hurt me. But the money it goes up. I think they do a good job. I think NASCAR does a good job, but they have to do a good job now because they have so many rules and so many things that you can't touch. If I allow Kenny Wallace's team to touch it, it's going to spread through the garage area like wildfire. So I have to slap you hard to send that message. And I think that's where they're at with all their rules and all their penalties. Is I don't like it, and I don't like to see them because I like creativity and I like to see people use their minds. And I'd like to see another Leonard Wood in this sport. I'd like to see another Ray Evernham in this sport. Somebody creative like that. But that they kill the creativity with the rules, and that's just the way it is.
And this is not on my list, but as I listen to you, that's one thing I try to do when I do these Kenny conversations. I try to listen. So just recently in the news is that when we watched Bud Moore quit, and we watched Junior Johnson quit, they had nothing. All they had was their building, and then years later, Junior auctioned it off. So now we got the franchises. And one reportedly, and you would know more than me, just went for $40 million. Now, for $40 million, we give you the franchise and you're guaranteed to sell sponsorship because now you are locked in every race.
Yeah.
Your opinion, boy, don't you wish Junior and Bud would have seen those days. What's your opinion on $40 million?
That's fascinating because I will go back. Let's go back to when LG DeWitt and when Junior went out of business and Bud went out of business and all these guys went out of business.
LG DeWitt. Wow.
They had a brick and mortar business.
Yeah.
They had, 60 years worth of Ford rear end housings and gears and lower control arms and cars. And they were lucky to get 10 cents on the dollar for everything they sold. Yeah, because
they put their whole life in it.
Yeah, their whole life, everything they'd ever done. And they were lucky to get 10 cents on a dollar. Now we're in a sport where somebody paid X for a charter and sold it for almost 400 times what he paid for it. That's not 10 cents on the dollar. That's 400. That's a multiple of 400 almost.
That's good stuff.
Which is crazy, which is crazy to me. And it's just a piece of paper. It's not anything. It's just, here's my charter, Kenny. You can have it. You know what I mean? For this much. So it's just a piece of paper. It's just, and it means something. Don't get me wrong. It's tangible and it has a value. But I think that totally changes because here's the thing you got to remember too. The charter that was sold is a charter on the low end of the income spectrum. It got so much money guaranteed before the year started. You're guaranteed to start every race and you're guaranteed X number of dollars.
You're guaranteed.
Yeah, you're guaranteed X number of dollars. Now, so let me get my picture here. So that charter was down here.
Yeah.
Okay. So if that charter is worth 40 and Rick Hendrick owns 4 charters that are up here, what's a Rick Hendrick charter worth?
Oh.
Is it worth 60? Is it worth 80? And he's got 4 of them? What's it worth? And that's the fascinating piece for me.
I easily see a charter being worth $100 million.
Yes.
And here's why. Because buy an NFL football team.
Yep.
And that's what you pay to get in because you're guaranteed a starting spot. Now I can sell sponsors.
Yep.